Welcome everybody to another episode of Fins Nation. I'm your host Louis Sung, and today we're going to be discussing what exactly is the Miami Dolphins should focus on in the upcoming draft. So everybody has their idea of what the Miami Dolphins' biggest need is right now. Some say it's right tackle, which we've had many shows now discussing the right tackle situation regarding whether there's hope for Austin Jackson, whether Kendall Lamb is the answer, or why hasn't Chris Greer addressed it. So right tackle obviously is a big one. Some people are saying tight end, some people are saying running back, some people are even still saying linebacker in spite of the signing of David Long Jr. So we're going to get into all the different discussions as well as some of the players that some of these mock drafts are looking at to try to address this need. But before we get too far into it, just want to go ahead and mention that this show is brought to you by PrizePicks.com. PrizePicks.com is the revolutionary fantasy platform where you can now pick up to 6 different players across professional sports leagues, whether that's the NFL, the NBA, the MLB, one of each. It's up to you to decide. All you have to do is choose the over or the under on those individual players' fantasy projections, whether that's individual stats or the classic fantasy point projections. They'll give you free squares, special Taco Tuesday promos, Flex Friday specials. If you get your money back where you lose and you multiply the amount of money you can win. With offers like that, it's hard to justify not signing up. So use the promo code 5, that's FIVE, and they will match up to $100 on your initial deposit when you sign up. So basically, you sign up using our promo code, that's FIVE, you put in $100 when you sign up, and they will give you a free $100 for you to play with on their dime. So again, go to PrizePicks.com, use the promo code 5, and get started today. And if you are a South Florida resident looking to protect your home or business with impact-rated windows and doors, make sure you contact All Pro Construction Builders. They specialize in impact window and door installations for residential and commercial properties. All Pro Construction Builders is a state-certified, licensed, and insured general contractor that services Miami-Dade, Monroe, and Broward counties. They use only top-quality products that are locally made, and they are a family-owned and operated business where you will only deal with the owner from start to finish. They offer competitive and affordable pricing as well as 100% financing with no upfront cost or down payment. So if you're looking for a trustworthy and reliable contractor who offers quality service, make sure you contact All Pro Construction Builders and call Danny at 305-484-4429. Again, that's Danny at 305-484-4429, and make sure you mention 5 Reasons Sports to get a 10% discount on your free estimate to help you protect your home in less than 8 weeks to get started. So let's get into this draft talk. Now, admittedly, I am not the greatest when it comes to the NFL draft. I usually defer to other people that I'm well acquainted with, such as the 3 Yards Per Carry crew, Alfredo Arteaga, Chris Kaufman, Simon Clancy. Of course, there are others that I know very well, Hussam Patel, who runs the Scouting Combine on 5 Reasons Sports. You all should check out his show if you haven't done that yet. Also, I also know several guys that are also on Twitter, like Brandon Howard. He's a really good guy that I'm well acquainted with, that he seems to know a lot of what he's doing when it comes to scouting. So all of these people are people that I very strongly appreciate their opinion when it comes to draft prospects. Now, with that being said, the Dolphins don't exactly have a whole lot of picks to go on this year. As of right now, the Miami Dolphins have 4 draft picks that can actually use. So those picks, as of this moment, are pick 51 in round 2, pick 84 in round 3, and then we have to wait 3 whole more rounds to get to pick 197 in round 6, and then finally pick 238 in round 7. Now, this does not mean that the Miami Dolphins will not eventually get more picks. Chris Greer is actually very good at turning players that don't really have much of a projected role into extra draft picks. I know that they've been saying that they have plans for Emmanuel Ogbah, but who is to say that those plans don't involve a trade of some kind? They didn't specifically say that Emmanuel Ogbah is expected to play this season. They just said that he's in their plans. Well, he's in their plans for what? As trade fodder? Which would be fantastic if Chris Greer can pull off another deal to get Emmanuel Ogbah out of here for maybe a 4th round pick. Maybe try to even out our draft picks a little bit. Because even though the Dolphins have made a lot of trades to get superstar players, and that is something that we have praised Chris Greer for, there is always a give and take. This means that you can't get many of the upcoming young studs who are in this draft. And as we are well aware, it is a very deep tight end and running back draft class this year, and both positions are positions of need for the Miami Dolphins, which means the more picks, the better. Now, does this mean the Dolphins are eventually going to facilitate a trade to get Emmanuel Ogbah out of here to potentially get maybe like a 4th or another 5th round pick? Could the Miami Dolphins forego Cedric Wilson if it means that they can get a 3rd or a 4th round pick out of him? They do now have Braxton Berrios on the roster. He could be the number 3 wide receiver very easily. He has talent. Everybody saw it at UM. So it's not like using Braxton Berrios as a number 3 would be a bad thing. I just think Cedric Wilson has more potential than that. However, if he can net the Miami Dolphins a third or fourth round pick, and not only that, end up saving the team some money as a result, because you never know, you can always use some more money somewhere else. So that's also a possibility when it comes to Chris Grier, because you can never rule out trades when Chris Grier is the one at the table. For all you know, he's going to put all his cards on the table and he's going to say, give me this thing that I want here, and you'll have no choice but to take it, because that's usually how it works with these things. He's able to identify players that no longer fit what the other team is ready to do and just taking advantage of it. Now, there are, of course, speculation whether or not the Miami Dolphins will even have a second-round pick, because there are a couple of players out there with a second-round tender available. I know that the Dallas Cowboys with Terrence Steele, a right tackle, that would instantly take care of the right tackle position, and he is very good. So it would be like basically drafting a player that they already know is good. They just have to pay him, whatever that amount is. But for the sake of the argument, we're going to go ahead and just stick with players who the Miami Dolphins actually have to draft. So first and foremost, obviously, again, the biggest need that is being perceived in the eyes of many Dolphins fans is offensive tackle. So if you're going to draft an offensive tackle and you're looking at this kid and saying you need to make an immediate impact because you need to uproot Austin Jackson and make him obsolete in every way, shape, and form, it's very unlikely in this draft class that you're going to find somebody who can immediately do that. The only real way that we can even remotely project what the picks could be or who would be available is just to run numerous, and I mean numerous, mock drafts with the algorithms and what teams supposedly need and what they're looking at, because you can never really tell what the philosophy is going to be for a team. Are they going to draft for best player available, or are they going to draft it based on need? Most mock draft simulators tend to go with need over best player available overall. So, for instance, obviously a team that doesn't need a quarterback is not going to take a quarterback even if they are the best player available, because that's not what the algorithm focuses on. So it comes down to who exactly is going to be the guy that would fall to the Miami Dolphins with the 51st overall pick. And after running several different simulations on FanSpeak, which is where I usually go when I'm not using the draft networks, two of the players that end up coming across are Syracuse's Matthew Bergeron and Alabama's Tyler Steen. Now, we know for a fact already, because the pictures were spotted on Twitter, that the Miami Dolphins took a very close look at the guys at Alabama when they went to see the pro day. Tyler Steen was one of the guys that they were able to look at. And so, obviously, they've already got an inside look at what he could potentially be. So, with somebody like a Tyler Steen, based on the things that I'm reading from our own people here at the 5 Reasons Sports Network, the thing with Tyler Steen is that he's very active, but he doesn't have very sound technique. That's not exactly a player that you draft in order to immediately uproot the likes of Austin Jackson. Austin Jackson is also an extreme athlete. Everybody already knows that's what he had going for him. He's an athlete. He had great traits, but his technique was god-awful and constantly needed to be coached and fixed. That was the whole discussion that we had in the previous show on Friday when we talked about, well, what was it that made Austin Jackson good in week 1, and then as soon as he came back from his injury, he was god-awful? Was it just because he was out of practice all that time? And if so, how did he forget all the fundamentals so quickly? Or was it just that he was still injured? If you're going to go with somebody like a Tyler Steen, you might as well go with Austin Jackson, because at least with Steen, you don't know what you're getting, but with Austin Jackson, you at least know that there's kind of a tiny little glimmer there, that there might be something there if you invest enough time in him, and you don't have to use the draft pick. You can actually use it on something else that you might need a little bit more. Now, I'm not saying that that's what the Dolphins should do. There are other prospects out there. Someone like a Matthew Bergeron out of Syracuse, as I mentioned before. He's another project player that would require a lot of development and investment. So again, that sounds like Austin Jackson to me. Some people will probably think of that and say, well, that's an insult to Matthew Bergeron and Tyler Steen. I'm sorry. Prospects that are projects coming out of the gate. So you're going to replace one project with another project in the hopes that this project has better bones on him, I guess. I don't know. If that's the case, you might as well keep trying with Liam Eichenberg and Austin Jackson and hope that maybe it was just rotten coaching that ended up ruining them instead of them just being bad players, period. I mean, they were drafted for a reason. They had to have done something or had something in them. In Austin Jackson's case, perhaps just elite athletic ability. But there was something there that got them drafted in the first place. No GM is so incompetent that they just pick bad players because they just decided they didn't want to do their homework. That's the kind of thing that gets you fired immediately. And Chris Greer is not that, even with offensive line. So moving past that, what about the tight end position? Now, with the tight end position, that's a little more interesting because with the tight end position, the Miami Dolphins have a lot of different options out there. So obviously, there are guys like Sam Laporta out of Iowa. Now, based on what I'm reading here with this kid, and a lot of what the talk about is on OnlyFins from our guys at 3 yards per carry, Sam Laporta has fantastic ability to catch and run with the ball, and based on what I'm reading here, because again, I am not a college superstar by any means. I don't know a whole lot about the college game. I spend most of my time watching NFL stuff and working on things like free agency and things like that. So when it comes to the draft, again, I usually tend to defer to other people who are more educated than I. Now, that doesn't mean I don't do my research. So based on what I'm looking at here, Laporta led the Iowa Hawkeyes in receiving yards with nearly double the production of the number 2 target. So he's somebody that can be trusted with catching a football, but he also is a competitive blocker. Now, that scouting report says he's a highly competitive blocker that brings fight on every snap. This is from the Draft Network, by the way, that I'm reading this right now. Now, the thing that I like is that, yes, he's a willing blocker. He is able to meet blocks. He has good technique. So, but apparently he has issues sustaining the block. So is that just a strength issue when it comes to who is he facing off against? So that just means he's not as reliable as a blocker as Durham Smythe. But it sounds like he's definitely a lot more reliable as a pass catcher. That would make Laporta a perfect fit for the Miami Dolphins if they decided to go with him at pick 51, which is pretty much where you would have to pick him if you really wanted him. Now, another player the Miami Dolphins have actually had a discussion with as of late is Brenton Strange out of Penn State, which is ironic because the Miami Dolphins just let a tight end from Penn State go in Mike Gesicki. So here's the thing with Brenton Strange. He is another project, but he's the kind of project who has all the physical tools to be a very, very productive tight end in his future. He catches the ball well. He has good ability to get yards after the catch. He's a willing blocker. He's got great size, great speed, great agility. He's got all the physical traits you could ever want, but he doesn't have a whole lot of sample size from his college career. He was rotated out a lot. So with that in mind, is that somebody that you would use their second round pick on? I think the Miami Dolphins could look elsewhere if they really decided to hone in on this kid. And they did just sign Eric Saubert. And of course, they're keeping Durham Smythe. And they like Durham Smythe. So maybe the Miami Dolphins are looking at Brenton Strange and saying, well, we can hold him out as a project. He can work with our tight ends coach and try to develop his game a little bit more. In the meantime, we'll stick with what we have, and maybe you can use the second round pick on a more immediate need, looking back at the offensive tackle position. Or you could take a move out of left field and just try to do something completely different. The running back position, as we've already heard with all the rumors regarding the Dolphins trying to bring in a star, is obviously still not content, right? So, yes, they brought back Raheem Mostert. Yes, they brought back Jeff Wilson. Yes, they brought back Savon Ahmed. But are the Dolphins satisfied at running back? I know that a lot of Dolphins fans are not. The Dolphins might be. But just for the sake of argument, let's just go ahead and say the Miami Dolphins are really looking at a running back. Now, I doubt it with their second round pick, considering the need at offensive tackle and tight end. But if they were looking at somebody at that position, somebody that they might be looking at, or somebody that they could realistically get at least, because there's a difference between who they would want and who they could get. So Jahmyr Gibbs out of Alabama, right? He's basically everything the Miami Dolphins could want at the running back position. The problem is, with all the different mock drafts that I've run, Jahmyr Gibbs never makes it out of the first round. Or if he does, he definitely doesn't make it get to the Dolphins. That would mean that he would have to fall all the way to the 20th pick in the second round, and he's just too good for that to happen. Every time I've run a mock draft, he's never made it. So I've never been able to personally get it. Now, other mock drafts elsewhere maybe might get it somewhere. But for somebody like Jahmyr Gibbs, it doesn't seem likely that Miami will be able to pick him at the second round. But now we can throw in a different kind of player in Devin Achane. Now, here's the thing with him. Everything that I've read so far about Devin Achane out of Texas A&M is that he's really fast, like really, really, really fast. In fact, from what I've been reading from the guys at the 3 yards per carry, Simon Clancy for one, Devin Achane might even be faster than Tyreek Hill. Now, if that is your comparison and you're saying he might even be faster, then it's supremely hard to ignore that type of thing. He has big playability. He's elusive. He can run faster than almost everybody. And that's something that in this offense anyway, that is a dangerous weapon to be able to have. And I'm sure Tua would love to be able to toss some passes his way and let him do his thing. But here's the problem. He does not have a lot of pass blocking or size or power. He's only 5'8", so he's not going to be beating anybody up anytime soon. He's not somebody you count on when there's a blitz that he has to pick up. So is that really what the Miami Dolphins want to do with their second round pick? I really don't think that this is where they're going to be looking, but he is a fantastic prospect, and I sincerely doubt that they would be able to pick him in the third round if that is the direction they wanted to go in. So there are other options. Zach Charbonnet out of UCLA, Zach Evans out of Ole Miss, Deuce Vaughn out of Kansas State. There's a lot of people talking about him. Sean Tucker out of Syracuse. There's a lot of good players at the running back position this season. So the real question, now we have to go back to it. What is the biggest need for the Miami Dolphins, right? There's Henry To'oTo'o from Alabama as a linebacker. Do you go with him? I know they've been looking at him. Do you go with Jordan Wright out of Kentucky? Ventrell Miller out of Florida? Jeremy Banks out of Tennessee? I really don't think that linebacker is going to be that big of a deal for the Dolphins now that they brought in David Long Jr. and Jerome Baker is now not going to have to do quite as much work, so he'll be able to shine a little bit more again. They just brought back Andrew Van Ginkel as a edge rusher. So the question once again becomes, like I said, what is the biggest need for the Miami Dolphins? If I am them, I'm either looking to get a tight end or an offensive tackle with my second round pick. And whichever one I got with my second rounder, with the very next pick, I'm getting the one in the third. So if you pick a tight end at second round, I'm getting an offensive tackle in the third round. If you pick a offensive tackle in the second round, I'm getting a tight end in the third round, and you just see what's available. Those are the biggest needs. Running back is very deep in this draft. They can wait for that. As for linebacker, I think they're covered at this point. So we will try to get you more draft content as the week goes on, because this is basically what it's going to be talking about for the next few weeks, right? Until the draft actually comes up. There's a lot of stuff to get into, and we're going to try to get you as much as we can here on Fins Nation. Make sure, if you haven't yet, that you go to PrizePicks.com. It's the revolutionary fantasy platform where you can go ahead and just choose the over on the under or on players' individual fantasy projections. So if you want to go ahead and try to get some free Taco Tuesday promos, Flex Friday specials, take advantage of free squares that they give you just so you can go ahead and get in there and start making some extra cash, use the promo code 5, that's FIVE, and they will match up to $100 on your initial deposit when you sign up. So they're giving you a free $100 just for putting in $100 to start playing with them. Again, that's prizepicks.com. Use the promo code 5. Sign up today. And if you are needing to protect your home or business with impact rated windows and doors, make sure you contact All Pro Construction Builders. Call Danny at 305-484-4429 and make sure to mention 5 Reasons Sports to get a 10% discount on your free estimate to help you get started to protect your home in less than 8 weeks. They offer competitive and affordable pricing as well as 100% financing with no upfront cost or down payment. Again, call Danny at 305-484-4429. Make sure to mention 5 Reasons Sports and you'll get a 10% discount and get yourself started protecting your home or property with impact rated windows and doors. All right, with all that said, we're going to go ahead and call it here. Thank you for listening, and we will see you tomorrow.